Welcome to TalentWise, a podcast dedicated to identifying and unpacking challenges and solutions related to the workforce. Each week, we hear from experts in their fields or industries who are fighting to better understand shifting dynamics. What are those dynamics, you might ask? Put most simply, the workforce crisis we've seen coming for decades is upon us, and most of us are not nearly as prepared as we should be. We've hosted expert demographers and researchers who have helped us understand the scale and scope of the workforce challenge, and we've heard from industry leaders tasked with managing strategic efforts to address this problem proactively. We've also heard from human resources professionals who are responsible for talent attraction and retention for their employers. This week, I am especially excited to welcome Frank Trigueros to TalentWise. Frank, how are you today, man?
I'm doing well, Danny. Hey, thanks for inviting me to chat with you.
Well, really appreciate your being here. Frank, whose opinions expressed today are his own and not his employer's, is the talent acquisition group leader for Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. For over 70 years, Lawrence Livermore has applied science and technology to make the world a better place. Its mission is to enable U.S. security and global stability and resilience by empowering multidisciplinary teams to pursue bold and innovative science and technology. At Lawrence Livermore, experts apply cutting-edge science and technology to achieve breakthroughs in nuclear deterrence, counterterrorism, and nonproliferation, defense and intelligence, and energy and environmental security. I was fortunate to meet Frank several years ago when a former client of mine, Huban Gawaudia, who is wonderful, joined the team at Lawrence Livermore. So, Frank, you are lucky to work with her. Thank you again for joining us and for sharing your wisdom with us today.
Absolutely. Happy to be here.
Well, tell us a little bit about you. What did you do in a former life that led you to becoming the group leader for talent acquisition at Lawrence Livermore?
Yeah. I think like most people, no one goes to college or gets educated to become a recruiter. You just kind of fall into it. And a couple years after I graduated from college, I had an opportunity to join a boutique firm in the San Francisco Bay Area to start doing recruiting, mostly for the tech space in Silicon Valley, supporting a lot of customers there. And I was there for about 11 years. And then an opportunity opened up at the laboratory, which I grew up 15 miles away from it, always knew about it. But I think like most people, you think only scientists and engineers get hired there. And it's really a self-contained city. We hire for everything. Opportunity opened up, joined as one of a few recruiters. And over time, we'll partner with my division leader. Our group grew. And I became one of the managers, a group leader in our talent acquisition division. So it's been a great journey. It's a great place to work. Seen a lot of change, and like I said, seeing our group grow and the services that we can provide to all our different hiring managers has been a great journey.
Wow. Well, I've had the fortune to visit Lawrence Livermore one time with Huban. This was probably 20 years ago, Frank. But if you haven't been there, you don't understand. Just sort of share it using broad strokes. What is it?
So yeah, the lab, its primary mission was tied to what has become now the Stockpile Stewardship Program, because we stopped doing detonation testing in the 80s. So we had to determine to continue to see that our nuclear arsenal could operate if needed. That has been our primary mission, but truly, we are a national security lab. We're not just a weapons lab. We do so much work in different areas to support national security. Our portfolio of work, for example, one of our programmatic areas called global security has just grown exponentially over the last 7+ years. So that's just one example. Even during COVID, we were able to leverage our weapons simulation code to help with the responses to battle the virus. So it shows our ability to adapt whenever there is a national crisis or there's a really tough challenge that the country needs us to solve. We're one of the labs that everyone comes to solve those problems.
Approximately how many people are there just for scale of the operation?
Yeah, we're not as big as some of our sister labs, but we have grown a lot since 2017. We are about 9,500 now, including contractors. Not everyone is always on site. We can't physically support everyone to be on site at one time, but we have grown a lot, especially in the last couple of years. It's plateaued a little bit of late, but we were really ramping up probably from our fiscal year 18 to fiscal year 23.
So how much time, this is a bit of a loaded question or a softball, I guess, but how much time do you and your leadership team spend thinking about issues related to your workforce?
It's a daily occurrence. We have to be forward thinking. We need to think about the now. Sometimes it's having those very tailored conversations with individuals. A big thing that we have been working on as a lab in the last couple years is really defining a career path. The lab is unique in that someone can join and have a very multifaceted career going in different directions. That's tied to what we call our matrix. And the matrix was helped develop by Dr. Lawrence when the lab was founded, bringing interdisciplinary individuals. Don't just give the problem to just the computer scientists or just the engineers. Bring multidisciplinary backgrounds together to solve a problem. So then that gives the ability for individuals to maybe work on one project here, then maybe later jump to a completely different project, yet still leveraging their background and their skills that they've developed over time. So we're working on trying to get more defined about some of those career paths, maybe people who want to focus more on leadership, or those want to be individual contributors, and how we can define that career path. So that's one thing we're really tackling right now for our workforce. It's a challenge because traditionally when people would join the national labs, the expectation was someone would generally spend their career. And there's a lot of individuals that have been here for 20, 30, 40 years, if not longer. And a lot of our emerging workforce now, you see it generally on average, 3 to 5 years. You're lucky if you get 6 to 8 out of someone before they want a new challenge. So trying to reinforce that you can have a very prolonged career at the laboratory, you can have different opportunities. Defining those career paths is something we've really been trying to lean into the last couple of years, so we can hopefully retain workforce for a long period of time like we have traditionally done in the past.
Mm-hmm. Understanding that sort of that is where your priority is right now, what is the thing that's keeping you up at night that maybe you don't have the time to get to or commit resources to today?
I think for us, there's all kinds of unique things. I think right now the big is the exterior, worrying about budget. So that's been one of our big things, and how to operate with that, with the recent administration change. Some of the executive orders have affected us. Some of them haven't, because it's different because we're contractors. We're not federal employees. So a lot of the exterior ones are what we're really trying to navigate. Future, and then we're going through always looking at where are ways we can improve going forward. One thing is that we're looking at some of our systems right now. We're going through a pretty major HRS implementation, upgrading, and how that impacts all the downstream, some of the workflows. We're looking at rolling out job descriptions, and doing a complete job restructure of our positions, and that's something that hasn't been done. I believe the last time was early 2000s. So it's there's a lot of those changes and how we educate the workforce, without them being alarmed of these changes, because scientists and engineers don't like a lot of change. They like how things are. So the communication as we roll that out is a big piece. I mean, I would say that we are at least being more forward thinking, trying to look at things internally and say, okay, where are there opportunities for us to improve? Because I think a lot of it for a lot of time is it's not broken, don't fix it. But when you're still operating, doing certain things that are well behind what's that you see in market and what our competitors are doing, we need to get caught up. And we're trying to do that in a lot of areas.
Yeah, as you think about some of the challenges that you all deal with, you're a large employer. Would you say that the challenges that you're seeing and trying to address around both talent acquisition and retention, are they getting worse over time? Is it getting easier to manage some of these pieces? How do you feel about that?
On the talent acquisition side, we've really improved in being more consultative, trying to give more information up front, help craft job postings that are going to bring individuals in. We've gotten better about how we reach out to targeting certain talent to bring them in. So we've really done a lot in that space to improve that. I mean, sometimes there are challenges where we need an individual as an active security clearance to come do a job right away. So, when you attach that to niche skills, sometimes it can be a lot tougher. But, our time to fill and time to hire in the last couple of years has really come down, namely because we've been more proactive. We're partnering a lot with our hiring managers to ensure that, we are meeting their needs, doing more upfront, because it was not traditionally something a lot of managers were used to. The lab for so long was very much post and pray. And, that started to diminish because we didn't pour a lot into the branding of the laboratory. And so I'd say since 2018, we really tried to focus on building branding, even if, say, there were certain niche areas that we weren't getting any talent for, but we already started investing and visiting that talent at whether conferences or schools. Even if we're not hiring those areas, be there. If you're at a site, you're out of mind, and you have to constantly build that branding. So that's something that even now, whereas things have kind of slowed down, we still want to ensure we're sight in mind when we go to some large conferences and schools that we've developed very deep rooted connections with. Because once things pick up, which I do anticipate, we want people like, okay, I want to join the lab. They've learned so much over a course of amount of time, they're ready to do it. On the retention side, I think like most companies, we felt it during COVID. A lot of individuals jumped ship then, but it has really tailored back. Our retention is really good. I think we've only lost, I think we are at 8% in terms of, individuals leaving the lab of our workforce. So that's very low, below even industry standards. So I think for us right now, it's identifying, being better projecting about retirements so we can do knowledge transfer. It's not something we traditionally used to do. And that's something we're trying to integrate more into the workforce for managers to be forward thinking, try and budget for that so you can have crossover, because we are going to have a steady flow of retirements.
Even with all of that type of activity going on, you referenced this earlier, you have multiple generations within your workforce working together. I suspect you're also trying to recruit across multiple generations. You mentioned sort of the branding piece and trying to get people more aware of the lab. And you also have a high degree of sensitive work that happens there requiring clearances. Which of those various sort of levers is the most challenging aspect of recruiting, especially on the recruiting side at Lawrence Livermore?
Yeah. Well, obviously, and with us also achieving fusion, that helped build a lot of our branding. And we continue to just get larger outputs. Just recently, we had an 8.6 megajoules output at the NIF, so the National Ignition Facility. So that helps, especially in the scientific realm. Individuals want to be a part of that. But it's always been a challenge at certain times to get talent that does have active clearances. We've improved in some areas and how we approach it, where we put our jobs out, having a larger recruiting group that's developed a larger network as we talk to individuals, that has helped a lot too. So that still is probably our most niche area that can always be a challenge, because a lot of times people don't want to wait. They want something to come and be effective, because right now on average clearances are taking 12 months. Mm-hmm. Some areas they're taking a little bit longer, and if so, then someone has to wait almost a year to really come in and do the work that they were hired to do. And a lot of times that's tough too, because it can affect programmatic work that needs to get completed in a timely manner, or even sometimes the employee themselves, you know, maybe like, I may want to move on then if I can't secure my clearance in a timely manner to move forward.
Complicated.
It is. It is. It can be a chicken and egg thing at times.
You have little shy of 10,000 people there. You're constrained by the facility itself. You're located in the Bay Area. There's a lot of strengths relative to being there, and there's probably some challenges too. And this is probably hard to calculate. You may not have this number, but how many different career paths would you say exist at Lawrence Livermore?
Wow. It really depends. And that's, like I mentioned earlier, one of the things we're working on is trying to track that out and define that and be more transparent so individuals can understand that. Generally, on the scientific and engineering side, individuals will come in as an individual contributor. And then over time, there's two different swim lanes or a couple of different swim lanes that could go down. The first is if you want to start doing leadership. We don't have a true management track. It's leadership with your work. So usually you have team leads, a group leader like myself, which is essentially a manager. And then sometimes you have a section leader, which would be a little bit larger a section, multiple groups you may be in charge of. Then you have deputy division leaders, and then you can get up into more senior level that has roles that impact at a directorate level. Mm-hmm. But there's also at the programmatic level, say you don't want to go that leadership path, you want to be a program leader that oversees a large program of deliverables. You're indirectly leading people, but your focus is on managing this deliverable for a certain program. Either you yourself as a principal investigator has gone out and sought out, or maybe it's tied to an existing program of deliverables that we have. Say, for example, the weapons program, you may be managing a program within there and ensure the deliverables are being met. So more times than DoD is our sponsor that we're making sure that we're meeting their timeline. So it really depends. That's scientific engineering. We have similar in the operations space, from whether you're just an individual contributor up to the quote unquote standard leadership track. So, it really depends, but also gives somebody the ability to, with our matrix, as I mentioned earlier, to jump to different areas in the lab. Maybe you got hired in engineering to support something in global security, but it doesn't mean that down the line you could jump to something in strategic deterrence, while still retaining your engineering. It just all depends. Even our ES&H, same thing, environmental safety and health, they could be doing different things that track in different areas.
Recognizing you have a lot of different programs that are being managed sort of under one roof, and understanding that, as we were talking before the podcast, a huge percentage of boomers, 90% of boomers will exit the workforce permanently by 2030. Are there areas of your enterprise that are more affected by that type of generational turnover than others?
I think that we all will feel it differently, depending on what staff has been where for so long. I personally see it as a challenge, a welcome challenge, to try and go out there if we need to go identify new talent. But I think a part of it too is, like we mentioned, is we're trying to do better about cross-training, knowledge transfer for some of these positions. But I think it's also, the way I view it is that it's an exciting time for our lab, because it is bringing scientists along faster now, getting more exposure, giving them opportunity, bringing in fresh ideas. Not to say that a lot of the work our colleagues have done previously doesn't matter. Of course it does. It's met the national security needs and challenges we have, but the world is constantly changing. There's always different things going on. And I think always bringing new ideas forward as our workforce changes is a welcoming thing. And then as we have to go and find talent to fill in other gaps again, being a recruiter at heart, I love that ability to go out there and talk to people, network with people, and get them excited about the work that we do to come join us.
that sort of speaks to a lot of the reasons why we do the work that we do. And, the numbers are discouraging or bleak, depending on your perspective.
Yeah, yeah.
So you can either run from that reality or lean into it. It sounds like you're interested in doing the latter.
Yeah, I tend to be a little optimistic about things because I just feel like there's always challenges, and either you can sit back on your hands and just take it, or you can try and adapt to it and try to overcome those challenges. And I very much, that's the path I try to take. I want to find solutions. I want to try and get to find those answers. Maybe it's not going to get that full answer, but maybe we can piecemeal and get there to bridge gaps, and then eventually, yeah, we've landed it to where we need to be. But it will be a challenge. It will be bleak in certain skilled areas, especially. It's going to exist. The skilled trades, there really is a gap there. And like I mentioned earlier, we're a self-contained city. We need electricians, plumbers, painters, everything. So I think the more that we can try and educate and let people know that those opportunities exist, we've looked at trying to establish other apprenticeship programs as well to be forward thinking, to continue to see what we can do working with the community to build that pipeline of talent. There's a lot of different things. It's a very dynamic problem, like you mentioned, but like I said, rather lean into it than sit back and being reactive to it.
Yeah, in the skilled trades in particular, I saw a frightening statistic that said in the next 5 years, for every one entrant to the skilled trades, we're going to lose 5. Yeah. And that's just a brutal reality for companies sort of trying to attract and retain talent in this environment. So taking a step back, what advice do you have for people in positions similar to yours in industries, both sort of, obviously that you guys cover so much ground. So industries who may relate to some portion of Lawrence Livermore's sort of enterprise at the enterprise level, what advice do you have to employers out there listening?
Oh, that's a tough one. I mean, as a recruiter, being consultative is probably one of the most important things. Lean into AI. There's a lot of talk about that, how you can leverage that to bring value to the work that you're providing to the managers you support. Try to be proactive in the opportunities that are out there. Engage, be that talent advisor. The more value you can show across, just going out and finding, the next individual to fill an opportunity. What can you do more beyond that? Is it advising on how they can help develop their staff? How maybe you can help give opportunity to current employees across maybe other projects, so that helps with staff retention. And those are kind of things that we're looking at right now, because we're not hiring like we were a couple of fiscal years ago. So it's really providing those additional things. Let's be forward thinking. Where can we advise? Where can we help? Maybe we take a different approach to different things. Where can we take more off your plate so you can be, find more impact with your day job and not worry about all the hiring things? Let us partner and lean in. So we've been doing a lot more of that of late. But I also recognize we're very unique at our lab, because we tend to be trying to get caught up to industry with a lot of practice individuals are doing. I know for recruiters, it's a tough time. So in some areas, a lot of individuals have been very fortunate to keep going. In other areas, I know it's impacted them, and they're out there looking for work, which is why I feel very fortunate that I'm where I'm at.
And you referenced at the beginning of our conversation, you kind of fell into this career.
Yeah.
What advice do you have for people who might be interested in a career in talent acquisition, regardless of the industry? Across a lot of our clients, our employer clients, we see people who have been in talent acquisition roles on HR teams, and that's been happening for decades. Mm-hmm. We're starting to see the emergence of talent retention professionals too on HR teams, which from our vantage point is sort of a newer and emerging career path. But what do you say to someone who's interested in pursuing a career in this kind of acquisition and retention, people management world?
Yeah. Obviously, we're experts in our field, but you need to come to it when you speak to managers or things like that. Ask the questions. Let them know you're there to support them, help them be successful by what you bring to the table. There's one thing I've learned: don't tell managers, "Oh, you should be doing this," or "You should be doing that." How can I help you achieve the results you want to do? What can I do to help you? And then if you're that's probably one of the first things. If you're going to be a recruiter or going to talent acquisition, is you should be trying to get the solutions. How can you get to yes? Managers don't want to hear no's, you know. And then if you're looking for talent, do your homework. Look at the job, understand what it is. What is the job trying to achieve? And look into it, understand it. That way, maybe you can have a far more targeted conversation, and also shows the manager you've done your research and shows that you care. So that's the one thing I've worked with many recruiters that don't put in that work and they don't build the partnerships. And then managers are reluctant to work with those recruiters because they don't feel those recruiters are hearing them. Yeah. And so that's one of the biggest things. Communication. When I started this profession, I was a bit of an extrovert, and it was a challenge, and it almost cost me my job. And I just had to continue working those skills. And that's one thing, is you got to be comfortable getting out of your skin to engage. Because if you can't engage, whether it's managers or even with candidates and applicants, because you have to sell them on the opportunity, where they see the value, how they see themselves, at a said company. You got to be able to do those things. So it was just some of the things like top of mind that I think about. You've got to be able to do it. From a talent management perspective, again, it's the same thing. What are you, how can we help you with your employees? Are you looking for skills gap? Do more skills-based hiring. That's a big thing right now. A lot of companies are doing that as a part of the retention. How you leverage your internal staff and give them opportunities in different areas where maybe there's a project where they can give a little bit of time to, and gives them exposure to new opportunities to help broaden their skill sets. So again, it's being consultative. That's the biggest thing. Where you are a talent advisor in all sense.
That's right. Well, how can people listening learn more about Lawrence Livermore, or if someone is interested in pursuing a job or career there, what's your advice? Where do they need to go?
Yeah, if you want to learn more about our lab, there's two different websites you can go to. It's llnl.gov. That's our main site. There's also another site that's really great. It's for managed by our science and technology area. And it's st.llnl.gov. So those are two great sites to learn more about the lab, projects that are going on. And then finally, if you're looking to apply for jobs in the laboratory, it's simply careers.llnl.gov. And you can set up job alerts as well on our career site. So perhaps you don't see something that aligns with what you want, but you can set it up so our website will email you if there's a said job that aligns with something someone's interested in.
That's great. And not to completely change the subject, but just out of more idle curiosity, what is a piece of feedback you have received or advice you've gotten from peers, colleagues, etc., that sort of sticks out in your mind?
The biggest thing that I've always remembered came from my where I started my career at, from the owner. And he said it's relationships, relationship building. That's the most important thing in this field in talent acquisition, is you have to develop relationships across the entire spectrum, because your success is predicated upon that. Because you never know when that conversation you have with a certain candidate, they may not be a fit for that role 5 years later, but you've kept those connections, you can get them somewhere else. You never know when a hiring manager is going to move to another opportunity or somewhere else. That networking, that rapport you've built is so important, especially as a recruiter, to continue that networking of you never know who you're going to run across. And that's what I talk to a lot of individuals, that enter into the R&D community, because it is a very small community. Never burn your bridges. Always be respectful for who you always meet through your career, because you never know when you're cross paths them again, especially in the R&D field. It happens in a niche area. So that's relationship building. It's just so important.
Well, that is wonderful advice. And that really speaks to how you and I met. I mean, it's through a relationship that I have with Huban. I don't know that she is talking with me anymore because my oldest is headed to Auburn this fall, despite our mutual love of the Crimson Tide. So she hasn't responded to the email much. She didn't have a lot to say when I let her know that my oldest is headed to Auburn. But Frank, thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate it. It is wonderful, as always, to see you. And I hope that you will join us again on TalentWise. For those of you listening at home or on your commute, I hope you'll join us again in a couple of weeks. But Frank, thank you for sharing so much wisdom with everybody tuning in.
Absolutely, Danny. It was an absolute pleasure. So thank you for inviting me.
Have a good one, man. Thank you.
All right, you too.